Penguin Random House Audio presents The Rebel and the Kingdom, the true story of the secret mission to overthrow the North Korean regime, by Bradley Hope. Read for you by Lee Osorio. For my parents, Mark and Linda. Behold, a new world is approaching before our very eyes. The age of might has receded, and the age of morality has arrived. Korean Declaration of Independence, March 1919. Author's Note. In late August 2011, I hitched a ride into Benghazi on a plane from Cairo, chartered by the United Nations World Food Program. I was arriving in the middle of a civil war, which had pitted troops loyal to the Libyan strongman, Muammar Gaddafi, against rebels who were outraged by the country's corrupt government and inspired by the wider Arab Spring movement. When I arrived, it felt like the civil war might be in its final weeks. A group of us reporters would make the long drive each day west along the coast from Benghazi toward Sirte, the final battleground, in the hopes of finding rebel commanders with updates on the fighting. Rebel brigades blocked the road into Sirte about 90 miles east of the city. There, amid gaggles of fighters, journalists would spend a few hours each day conducting interviews. One day, as a fellow journalist named Kristen Chick and I were about to leave, we spotted a group of fighters gathered in a circle, laughing uproariously. We headed over and, in the center of their circle, discovered an improbable sight. A grinning 18-year-old Korean-American college student by the name of Chris Jun. The young American had flown to Cairo, taken a train to Alexandria, and then hitchhiked his way into Libya. Jun, who had just completed an internship at the financial firm BlackRock in San Francisco, was on his summer break. Clad in a blue Lakers jersey, Jun didn't speak a lick of Arabic, but that had not deterred him from getting a taste of, quote, one of the only real revolutions in the world. When I got back to Benghazi, I immediately wrote up the story of the mathematics student turned would-be rebel. Within minutes of being published online, the story exploded. Hundreds of news outlets around the world picked it up. Then, later that day, an email arrived in my inbox from an unfamiliar name. Adrian Hong. Great story, the stranger wrote, mistakenly referring to me as Bob. And then he asked me if I could put him in touch with Jun. Adrian told me he was heading to Libya soon and wanted to help ensure Jun got home to America safely. I connected Adrian and Jun's father over email, but curious, I began digging into Adrian's online trail. His full name, I learned, was Adrian Hong Chang, but he went by his father's last name. I saw that he was a Yale graduate who was active in North Korean human rights issues. Intrigued, I decided to strike up a separate conversation with Adrian himself. Why would a young North Korea activist like himself want to go to Libya? He had a suave, confident way about him in our conversations. There was always a touch of mystery, too. He seemed to be extremely connected with the Libyan rebels. He also seemed connected to Syrian and Egyptian revolutionaries. But everything was vague. For the first time, but not the last, I began to wonder, is he really doing things? Or is he pretending? I was then living in Cairo and covering conflicts throughout the Middle East. I knew that war could act as a magnet, attracting all types of unlikely people, whether their aim was duty, altruism, or profit. My first thought was that he was an American spy, posing as a businessman. But there was something about him, an air of authenticity mixed with a touch of the amateur, that kept me questioning. It was also highly unlikely a spy would contact an American journalist. There was too much risk of exposure. Was he an Ivy League do-gooder in over his head? Or could he, too, be a civilian thrill-seeker? Perhaps a more sophisticated type than Chris John, but a thrill-seeker nonetheless? Or was he something else entirely? Some kind of rogue operative with hidden motivations? One thing I was certain of. The man seemed worth keeping tabs on. Writing about secretive people and events is an enormous challenge. I have been tracking Adrian Hong and his activities for more than a decade, and spent much of the last 3 years of my life reporting in depth on the story of Adrian and his organization, now known as Free Joseon. I interviewed scores of people around the world with unique insights, as well as obtaining documents, photos, and video footage unavailable to the public to confirm aspects of the story and fill in crucial details. All my books have been catalyzed by questions that try to cut to the heart of how power and influence work in the 21st century. And I try to answer them by telling a good story. In Billion Dollar Whale, my co-author Tom Wright and I tried to understand how a young Malaysian poser could purloin billions of dollars right under the noses of the financial world's watchdogs, while convincing politicians, Hollywood A-listers, and countless others that he was who he said he was. In my second book, Blood and Oil, with Justin Sheck, I wanted to understand Mohammed bin Salman, the enigmatic crown prince of Saudi Arabia, who had emerged from obscurity to embark on a quest to modernize the oil-rich nation, while at the same time cutting a ruthless figure in his attempt to consolidate power and quash dissent. That book sought to probe how MBS was upending the simple bargain that had been at the center of U.S.-Saudi relations for more than 80 years, oil for military protection, and unpack the implications. Here, the question that animated my reporting and writing is deceptively simple. Who is Adrian Hong? I wanted to understand how an idealistic Ivy League graduate had become a global fugitive. What had motivated him to do what he did? What made him think he could change the world? And moreover, was it even possible for someone, a regular citizen driven by passion and good intentions, assuming they were good, working with a small group of collaborators to effect a change to the global political order in the age of digital surveillance and autocracies? Those are the questions I hope you will keep front of mind as you listen on. A few things to note. First, I'm a journalist, not a historian. There are many fine books on the history of Korea, which offer far more comprehensive detail on pivotal events and figures. I sought to provide necessary historical context while placing current events and figures at the center of the book's narrative. My hope is that what follows will offer insights both to seasoned readers of North Korean history and to those coming to the subject for the very first time. Many of the sources for this book spoke to me at great personal risk. Adrian Hong, his fellow members of Free Joseon, and others connected to them have operated despite threats against their lives and myriad other dangers. In the book, I made the decision to not name anyone who has not already been publicly identified as a member of the group. I took special precautions to protect my communications with the book's sources and leave no traces for would-be assailants to identify them. Finally, a note on names. The Korean names in this book follow the order of family name first, given name second. If the given name has multiple syllables, as it usually does, it is hyphenated. This does not apply to the names of Korean Americans, who typically follow Western naming conventions. For them, and non-Korean individuals, I typically use last names on subsequent references, with the exception of Adrian Hong. Prologue. The Break-In. Madrid, February 22nd, 2019. On a cool Friday afternoon in late winter, a well-dressed man carrying 2 luxury gift bags walked up to the door of the North Korean embassy in Madrid and pressed the buzzer. "See?" a voice said through the intercom after a few minutes. "Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Chow. The man outside replied in good Spanish. Explain.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?